Maybe he is a god. Maybe he represents humankind's rage, their will to persevere. I believe him now to be more than just a man. He is Doom.
How many times can one franchise redefine an entire genre? Like, it's hard for one game, one film, or one book, anything to do that once, but Doom somehow has managed to do it a couple of times. In 1993, first-person shooters were barely even in their infancy, and Doom comes out swinging as like a fully grown tax-paying adult who already went to college, got a degree, already figured out who they are, and has a six-figure salary. Its fast and simple gunplay was really easy to sort of get a hold of, but it was difficult to master. You could play on I'm Too Young to Die and have like a nice, fun, casual experience, sliding around, shotgunning imps through the hallways of the UAC Phobos base. But with just a little bit of practice and determination, you can rip and tear your way through Ultra Nightmare, skating around demons and mastering movement and taking advantage of every tool in your arsenal. It just kind of showed the rest of the industry how you design a first-person shooter. Not only that, but id also made their tools available to everyone. And with the very modular way that levels were constructed in Doom, it made it really easy for people to get a grasp on it and start making levels of their own, which got a lot of people into game design. It doesn't take a lot of mental gymnastics to see how this directly led to the existence of games like Perfect Dark and GoldenEye, Halo, Call of Duty, Medal of Honor, Battlefield. And those are just the other first-person shooters that we can point to and say exist as a direct result of Doom. You can play degrees of Doom with almost any game made after 1993, but that's not really what this video is about. This video is more about the Doom franchise's relationship to innovation and change. And what you need to take away from what I just said is that Doom basically spawned a ton of these other first-person shooters. And because of the sheer number of games coming out and the number of developers working on these games, id Software was kind of outpaced very quickly. New trends were created and iterated upon and overtook Doom's original school of game design. No longer was it about fast movement, a large arsenal of weapons. The genre was kind of overtaken by photorealism and like slower gameplay and backpack 2 weapon systems and like no longer carrying around a small military's entire arsenal on your person at all times. So when it came time to make the next mainline entry into the franchise, Doom 3 tried to shape the series' identity to better fit this more contemporary mold. And you know, things seem to be shaping up pretty well. The new id Tech engine's ability to render real-time lighting and shadows, and the new level of detail in characters and environments that were unseen in past games. And while not everyone was on board with the more horror-oriented approach that the series was taking, it kind of seemed like the right call to make. It's just really unfortunate that, around the time Doom 3 hit shelves, Half-Life 2 came out, which just kind of blew Doom 3 out of the water, not only with its level of detail and attention to detail, but also innovated in new ways, like introducing a new complex physics engine and incorporating that into the core design of the game. And then we had Halo 2 come out that same year. Halo 2, which literally created the way that we play multiplayer games today with its matchmaking system and Xbox Live. And you know what? It's fine. It's fine getting old, letting the new blood sort of take the charge of the space and creating these new features and adding layers, iterating upon what came before. And I think even though Doom 3 wasn't the huge success that they probably were hoping it would be, I think that it will be fine as long as they don't forget where they came from and try not to turn Quake or Wolfenstein or Doom into something that they weren't meant to be. Because sure, these new things, these new design elements might come along, but that doesn't mean that they need to become commonplace. Not every intellectual property is the right fit for every single new thing that happens. There's the right time and place for things like ADS and perks and kill streaks and cover systems and all that jazz. And you know, Doom 3 was just a little experiment that didn't quite pan out. It's still a pretty good game. And, you know, next time maybe it will embrace what made Doom unique in the first place. Maybe with the advancements in hardware and stuff like that, they can actually iterate upon that classic fast-paced FPS game design that Doom pioneered and literally created the genre with. Oh, wait. Hold on. I'm just now learning that they didn't? They tried to make, like, a modern military shooter Doom game? Oh. Like, with ADS and stuff, like perks and kill streaks. And, like, it's just kind of a brown-gray hallway shooter, but just with demons. Okay, Doom 4 1.0, or Call of Doom, or whatever the hell you want to call it, is such an interesting footnote in the history of the franchise. Because it's not Doom, but, like, it could have been Doom? I've always been a firm believer that a franchise is always what the stewards of said franchise want it to be. That's not to say that whoever's in charge might not make the best decisions. Oh, they want to make a Halo RTS? I say go for it. Might actually work out, you know, that actually feels pretty fitting. That might resonate with people. If they want to make a Star Wars movie that's, like, completely devoid of politics in an effort to appeal to a wider audience, I mean, go for it, but just don't be surprised when people criticize it for lacking substance, because, you know, even if you don't engage very much with that aspect of Star Wars, once it's gone, you know, let's just say...
Some so subtle you might not have even noticed, but your brain did.
You want to make a Doom game that leans more into contemporary FPS game design? I mean, go ahead, try it out, but expect that maybe it won't resonate with a lot of people, because, to put it bluntly, Call of Duty is already very well established in this space, and as a result, you might not pull in those new players that you're trying to pull in because they might just look at it as some kind of COD pretender. And then you're just gonna be alienating the established fan base who doesn't want this, so we're kind of just making something that's destined to fail. It's DOA. If only there was a way to properly modernize Doom. Use those advancements that the medium has made since 1997 to actually iterate upon that classic fast-paced FPS game design. Maybe you can cherry-pick some of the more contemporary things and incorporate them into something that feels closer to the spirit of those original games. Maybe not like ADS or like a cover system or anything like that, but like that finishing move thing that was part of the original Doom 4, that's a more contemporary design element that we can work with. But how do we retrofit it to fit the more fast-paced nature of classic Doom? Well, let's think about those classic Doom games and how they engage the player. Like, think about the resource management. You know, taking advantage of your entire arsenal, keeping an eye on your health and armor reserves so that you don't get caught with your pants down, running out of ammo for the weapon you're using, or just straight up dying. Well, here's an idea. What if performing these finishers dropped resources? Like, not only would that add a layer to the resource management aspect of the game, but it would also encourage the player to be more aggressive, therefore reinforcing the faster pace of the game. So for those who don't know, the glory kill system began as a mechanic in Doom 4 1.0 and was adapted to fit the more aggressive and fast nature of what eventually became Doom 2016. And I think that that's a perfect microcosm of what I'm trying to get at. Instead of trying to play catch up with the rest of the industry and the rest of the genre that the franchise basically created, they took a look at the current state of first-person shooters and kind of realized that 99% of the games were all becoming this watered down, vapid imitation of the same damn thing over and over again. And they tried to make something in that same vein, which seemed like the right thing to do at the time, but it's like a switch flipped at the studio and id collectively realized, oh wait, no, this is Doom. Doom 2016 kind of blew the door open for first-person shooters going forward. I'm sure I'm not the only one who remembers what the space was like back in 2016. I really did mean it whenever I said that back then it felt like every game in the first-person shooter space felt like it was just trying to be the same game. It's like all the publishers realized that if you're making a first-person shooter, and if you make it look like Call of Duty, it's gonna sell. And Call of Duty itself didn't feel the need to innovate because Activision was making money hand over fist every year. Even my beloved Halo was starting to dip its toes into the waters of homogeneity with loadouts and perks and kill streaks and advanced movement. But then Doom came out and reminded everyone that not every first-person shooter has to be Call of Duty, and they did it by just remembering and embracing its own identity. Kind of a universal lesson in the creative field, to be honest. It breeds interesting ways of innovating on established sort of language of design and helps avoid stagnation. Have you ever wondered why since 2019 Call of Duty has just kind of been getting less and less interesting? And before that, going back to 2007 when COD 4 came out, every Call of Duty after that just started becoming less and less interesting. To put it simply, it's just stagnation. Stagnation that stems from the complacency of both developers and publishers that felt like they were just consistently making more money and selling units. And I apologize if this sounds a little harsh, but the majority of the player base grew complacent as well because they kept getting fed their slop. And hey, there's nothing wrong with slop. I like myself a little McDonald's cheeseburger every once in a while too, but every day though? Even if it's every day, even if every day and I switch it up, this day I get everything on it and tomorrow I get no pickles and the next day maybe I get a triple cheese, like, it's still a McDonald's cheeseburger. Like, I'm going to get resentful of the cheeseburger. I'm not a dog. I don't want to eat the same thing every day, and I'm not one of those chicken and broccoli utilitarians. Like, food is art. And so are video games. So with Doom 2016, after serving us this beautifully cooked, juicy, medium rare steak with some nice, like, oil blanched, like, green beans that have, like, that nice seasoning on them, you know, and like a good baked potato, it got working on their next meal. But this time they wanted to try something a little different. Not too different, but, you know, just kind of mix things up a little. So instead of like a nice 12-ounce juicy sirloin as our main sort of centerpiece of the dish with like a couple of sides to keep us occupied, they opted instead to maybe, you know, pick up like a nice flank steak and cook that up and use it as like a basis to build this nice beef mushroom stroganoff that we serve over like a nice bed of those like really good like wide egg noodles, you know? Like something that takes that same core element of the original dish but mixes it together with a bunch of things and adds this complexity and has like some really strong cohesiveness. I need to chill with the food metaphors, man. I'm gonna make myself act up. And that's what Doom Eternal is. It takes the core of what Doom 2016 did, getting back to that faster paced classic FPS game design, and uses it as like a springboard to add some more complexity and mix it in with newer design elements. Like the additions made to the resource management game with the flame belch and the different types of offensive capabilities like the blood punch and the ice bomb and the meat hook on the super shotgun, opening up even more mobility options on top of already having a double jump from the start along with the dash. It all blends together to create this dance where you're managing your resources and leveraging your mobility and making use of all your tools in your arsenal. All of it wouldn't work together so well if it weren't for the visuals. All of the enemy demons having really distinct and appropriate designs that perfectly indicate their role in the sandbox. And the sound design is just so crunchy and poppy, and there's so many great feedback sounds that really just kind of get your dopamine receptors firing. And of course, what hasn't been said about Mick Gordon's soundtrack? I mean, Mick Gordon's strange techno-industrial metal sound really mixes well with this insane Powerwolf album cover mixed with like alien bleak techno-futurism. And of course, the big reason as to why the resource management game works so well is because of like the glory kills. There are so many silly and creative ways the Doomslayer can make fun little like arts and crafts out of the demon's many different forms. But above all, these animations, they're all very kinetic and very satisfying. And sometimes the simplest ones are the most satisfying, at least in my opinion. My personal favorite being this one from behind the Prowler. Doom Eternal is just one of my favorite games ever made, and it's up there with games like Bloodborne that I will play through on a pretty regular basis, at least once or twice a year. So naturally, when Doom The Dark Ages was announced, I was hyped as hell to see what Hugo Martin and the team at id Software had been cooking up and how they would shake it up this time. If Doom 2016 was like a steak dinner that had a lot of effort and focus put into one element of the dish, and Eternal was like a beef stroganoff that sort of took the main element of that original meal and mixed it in with a bunch of other elements to add complexity and depth, The Dark Ages is like the best burger that you've ever had. Like a really good breakfast burger is how I imagine it. We still have that main component of the beef, but it's being presented in a substantially different way. And while we might not have that complexity and richness of the beef stroganoff with the sauce and the different elements that go into that, we still have a lot of depth, just in a very different way. Like, instead of carefully mingling all these different flavors into this homogeneous mixture, the depth of the flavor comes from the separate toppings that exist independent of each other. But still, you know, when you take that bite and you chew everything up and it all mingles together in your mouth as you're processing it, it sort of coalesces into this deep, rich, satisfying experience. Like the patty itself being that best-in-class FPS gameplay that we come to expect from Doom and from id Software. Even though we don't have like the double jump or the blood punch or the flame belts or the ice bomb or the dash anymore, take a look at what took the place of those tools to kind of better suit the tone and feel of what they were going for this time around. Think of the shield dash as like a perfectly cooked over easy egg on your burger, and the parry as like this nice handful of like crispy bacon. And then you have all these other toppings that you can kind of mix and match to your liking. Do you want like a nice avocado schmear and some nice like peppery arugula to kind of balance out all of that meatiness with some freshness? Equip the Ground Fissure shield rune and get some extra stagger potential and go wail on enemies with a fully upgraded flail to maximize your armor and ammo pickups. And maybe use the Impaler to place some supercharged headshots for huge damage against like single enemies. Or maybe you just want this burger to be like the richest, most meaty flavor bomb that it can possibly be. Well, maybe then you'd go with like Heaven Splitter and pair that with the Dread Mace and the Chain Shot to just kind of delete heavy enemies while also having really good crowd control capabilities. The Dark Ages in a lot of ways is a much more accessible game than Doom Eternal. And that's not to say that it lacks the depth of Doom Eternal, it just has the depth in different ways. And I hope that I illustrated it well with my whole burger versus the steak dinner stroganoff analogy. It's like a very customizable experience, as opposed to 2016 and to a much larger extent Eternal's sort of singular vision for how they want the player to engage with the mechanics. And I hope I illustrated that well with my whole burger versus steak dinner beef stroganoff thing. It's a very customizable experience, as opposed to 2016's and, to a much larger extent, Eternal's very singular vision for how it wants the player to engage with its mechanics. And frankly, anyone who says that Doom the Dark Ages isn't Doom because it's not Doom Eternal 2 aren't fans of Doom. Doom is whatever the people at id Software and Bethesda want it to be. In fact, the Doom game that you people are complaining the Dark Ages isn't similar enough to actually has more in common with the classic Quake games than it does the classic Doom games. Hell, I'd even argue that the Dark Ages is a more faithful modern reinterpretation of the classic Doom games than 2016 or Eternal. But at the end of the day, that doesn't really matter, because what Doom isn't up to me. It's up to the developers. It's the artists. It's the artist's responsibility to determine what something is, and it's the audience's responsibility to take it and interpret it as a part of a wider tapestry, a bigger picture. And that bigger picture could mean culture at large, or it could mean as part of the lineage of a series or franchise, like Doom, or Star Wars, or Call of Duty, or Halo. So just don't grow complacent. Don't depend on the safety of what came before, because that just leads to stagnation and boring art. It's that same stagnation that Doom pulled us out of in 2016 when they reminded us that it can pay off to try new things or to embrace the past, to go against the grain in whatever form that takes. And that's just kind of a universal lesson in video games and film and television, literature, food. It's just always sad seeing people beg to be comforted by what they know and rejecting the novelty and the enriching nature of having new experiences. Meet artists where they are, not where you want them to be. And let's just remember that art is a dialogue, and let's try and keep it that way. Unless one side of the dialogue is just kind of crying in the corner, refusing to speak unless you give them their binky or something. I don't know. Well, that was a fun little detour, wasn't it? I don't know if everyone kind of expects my channel to kind of be mostly about like comic books and comic book media and stuff, but you know, I want to treat this channel more as like an outlet for me to just kind of talk about the things that I want to talk about. And I've been playing a lot of Doom, so I've just been wanting to talk about Doom, and I've been wanting to talk about Doom for a long time in a format like this, because I just have a very insecure mindset about wanting to be seen as intelligent in the way that I consume my media. I do want to do a video about Superman. I've been seeing so many things, I've been trying not to get spoiled, but I need to wait until Fantastic Four comes out, because my friends and I are going to get together and do a little double feature, but we can't really do it like, we can't really like see them as they come out, because like we're kind of like 5 hours apart, so like we want to get together and see them both at the same time when they're both out. So I have to wait till the end of the month to see Superman. So if I make a Superman video, it'll be probably at the beginning of August, unfortunately. But you know, everything that I've seen about it makes me really anxious about talking about it, because it seems like something that I would love to talk about. To talk about weird chuds just now figuring out that Superman is like an immigrant and is like a good person, and they don't really like good things, so you know, that's fun. But yeah, I just wanted to talk about Doom. See ya.